So we're going to be doing the dispensing part of a candy machine. You know those little machines that you see in stores where you put in the money and then it gives you like a little handful of M&Ms or whatever. And we're going to do a super simplified version. As we kind of go through the first couple of steps, we're going to show you like if we did a more realistic, real-world problem, how much bigger it would make the problem and your circuit at the end. So we're going to do a really simplified version here. It's going to dispense the candy, and the candy is just going to cost 10 cents. And the machine only accepts nickels and dimes. And it doesn't give any change back. So our first thing is, like, if you put in a nickel and then a dime, you don't get a nickel back. You just contributed an extra 5 cents. Thank you for donating. Okay? Again, if we include those extra parts, it's going to be much more complicated. Kind of makes sense where we're going with the problem here? And I will say the reason we're going through this long example, you're going to make this circuit on multisim. At the end of this, you will have everything you need to make this circuit on multisim, and then you'll be repeating all these same steps with the next assignment that you're going to do, which has to do with phone numbers, entering phone numbers. I'm going to give you a number to put in, but yes. We'll get to that next time. But so you need to understand each of these steps. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is it first says determine the number of states. So we're going to write those out. I'm going to write on here. You should be writing in your notebook. I'm actually just writing on paper so I can like shuffle the pages back and forth for you instead of flipping back and forth in a notebook. So we're going to talk about the states that we have. And these are what state, what condition could this candy machine be in? What's the first thing that's happening? No, that's what we do. What's the machine doing? Wait, nothing. Because what's it doing? Waiting for money. So that's our first state, is waiting for 10 cents. And just as an aside note, how much of the time during a day do you think it's in this state? I mean, this is the majority of the time. It's just sitting there waiting for someone to come by and put some money in. Now, what's another state that it could be in? Dispensing. So let's get to that in a second. So what could happen when it's sitting there waiting for 10 cents? What are the two things that could happen? How much? So it could either get a nickel or a dime put into it, right? It's sitting at this state, and then the two things that could happen is it gets a nickel put in or it gets a dime put in. Let's start it with, if it gets a nickel put into it, now what is it doing? Waiting for another nickel. So now here's our second state, which is wait for 5 cents. Now, if it gets its 10 cents or if it gets its extra 5 here, then what does it do? It dispenses the candy. And then we're going to have, because we're going to be working with binary stuff, we have a fourth state here that we're not going to use. That's basically all that this one does. So we're just going to put this one down, not used. When they write states, okay, so I'm sorry, go back over here. So determine the number of states. How many states do we have? Well, we really have 3 because the last one's not used. So 3 states. We'd have 4. So now the next step says determine the number of state variables. So we're going to get to that. So they label the states as S, and they always start with S0, S1, S2, S3. Okay, now we're going to have our state variables. And they're going to be Q1 and Q0. And what do you think that's going to be? 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. Does that match this part over here? Do these match this part over here? Yeah. I mean, that's just the binary of these over here. So how many state variables did we need in order to do our state there? State variables are Q1 and Q0, so how many state variables do we need? 2. So that's the second answer on your handout. We need 2 state variables. Now we need to talk about a couple of other things, and we're going to create a little drawing before we make the graph that it says on the worksheet there. We need to talk about inputs and outputs. So what do you think inputs are going to be? Money. What kind of money? Nickels and dimes. So we're going to call N nickels and D dimes. And what's the output? Candy. We love candy. C for candy. Okay. Candy's the output. All right. Now we're going to make the state graph. So you can put that on the handout or you can put it in your notebook. State graph. So you're going to want to make these circles kind of big enough that you can write inside them because we're going to write several things in there. Our first state was state 0. We called that weight on 10 cents. And then we need to put Q1, Q0, and we're going to add here what our C is here. So for state 0, what was Q1 and Q0? 0, 0. And at this point, do we get candy? No. Okay. So then, what could happen? We could put in a dime, but let's put in a nickel. Because a nickel will take us to state 1. So we're going to connect these with arrows like this. And you just said what's going to happen is we're going to put in a nickel. So N equals 1, because we're putting in a nickel. And D equals 0 to get us to state 1. At state 1, we called that what? Weight on 5 cents. Q1, Q0, and candy, 0. No candy yet.